What if I told you that sometimes the strongest cry for attention is never spoken out loud? That a woman can walk into your life smiling, calm, completely composed, and yet silently be hoping, almost praying, that someone finally notices the small ways she's reaching out for connection. Not because she's dramatic or needy, but because she hasn't felt truly close to anyone in a very long time. And the signs are there right in front of you, hidden in her body language, her kindness, her quiet efforts, the way she lingers just a little longer around you. And if you don't understand what those signals really mean, you'll miss the moment entirely. But if you do, you'll see that what looks like ordinary behavior is actually a subtle invitation, a silent test, and a deeply human desire to feel chosen, safe, and wanted without ever having to ask for it. What most people misunderstand about emotional deprivation is that it almost never shows up as someone openly saying, "I feel lonely," or "I need closeness." Because for many women, especially those who have gone a long time without intimacy, directly asking for attention feels too vulnerable, too risky, almost like handing someone the power to reject them. So instead, the need leaks out sideways through behavior, through small bids for connection that are easy to miss if you are not paying attention. And this is where emotional deprivation quietly transforms into attention-seeking patterns that don't look dramatic or desperate, but subtle and controlled. The way she might suddenly become more talkative around you, laugh a little longer than usual, find reasons to text about small, unnecessary things, or share details of her day that technically don't require sharing, all of which are unconscious ways of saying, "See me, notice me, include me," because the human nervous system is wired for attachment. And when that attachment has been absent for months or years, the brain begins searching for micro-validations, tiny reassurances that she still matters, that she is still desirable, that she hasn't become invisible. So rather than chasing outright, she may position herself physically closer in group settings, maintain eye contact a moment longer, lightly touch your arm when making a point, or offer compliments and support more generously than expected. And none of this is manipulation or game playing, but a protective strategy, a soft approach that reduces the sting of possible rejection, something psychologists often explain in the calm, educational style associated with figures like Dr. Ramani, where the emphasis is on understanding the underlying wound rather than judging the surface behavior. Because when someone has been starved of intimacy, their self-worth can quietly erode and they begin to overinvest socially, giving more kindness, more listening, more availability, hoping that by being valuable, they will secure attention naturally, almost like proving they deserve to be chosen. And you might notice that she checks your reactions carefully, watching your face when she speaks, adjusting her tone based on your response, subtly calibrating herself to maintain connection, which is the nervous system's way of protecting against abandonment, a constant scanning for signs of interest or disinterest, warmth or withdrawal, making her behavior seem attentive, accommodating, sometimes unusually considerate, all rooted not in neediness, but in a deep, unspoken hunger to feel emotionally held and acknowledged. When a woman has gone a long time without intimacy, one of the quiet psychological shifts that begins to surface is an increased sensitivity to validation and reassurance. And this doesn't mean she suddenly becomes insecure or dependent in an obvious way. It means her emotional radar becomes sharper, almost hyper-aware, constantly scanning for small signs that she matters, that she is seen, that she is still desirable and emotionally significant to someone, because prolonged periods without closeness can slowly erode a person's internal sense of worth, not in a dramatic collapse, but in tiny daily doubts that accumulate over time. And so the brain starts attaching more meaning than usual to little gestures. A delayed reply feels heavier, a warm smile feels brighter, a casual compliment lingers longer in her mind. And you may notice that she remembers exactly what you said about her appearance or personality days later, because those words act like emotional nourishment, like proof that she hasn't faded into the background of life, which is why she may subtly fish for reassurance without realizing she's doing it. Asking questions like whether she handled something well, whether you think she looks tired, whether you missed her, not because she wants praise, but because reassurance temporarily quiets the fear of invisibility. And this heightened sensitivity often shows up in how closely she monitors your tone and behavior, analyzing small changes, wondering if you sound distant, wondering if something is wrong, reading between lines that may not even exist, a pattern often described in the educational psychological breakdowns associated with Dr. Ramani Durvasula, where emotional deprivation makes people more reactive to perceived acceptance or rejection, and as a result, she may put extra effort into maintaining harmony, being agreeable, supportive, or helpful, almost as if she's trying to secure her place in your life by being indispensable, because validation becomes a form of safety, a signal that she won't be dismissed or overlooked, and the smallest affirmations carry disproportionate weight. A genuine, "I appreciate you," can lift her entire mood, while a moment of indifference can quietly unsettle her for hours. So she might lean into conversations more, seek your opinion more often, or create opportunities for connection, simply to feel that reassuring feedback loop again. Not out of manipulation or drama, but out of a very human need to feel valued, anchored, and emotionally chosen in a world that has felt a little too quiet for far too long. When a woman has been without intimacy for a long time, one of the most telling changes doesn't come from what she says, but from how she physically moves around you, because the body often communicates needs long before the mind feels safe enough to put them into words, and this is where subtle physical proximity and body language shifts begin to speak volumes, not in bold or obvious ways, but in gentle, almost unconscious adjustments that signal openness, comfort, and a quiet invitation for connection. So you may notice she chooses the seat next to you, even when others are available, stands a little closer during conversations, angles her body toward you rather than away, or mirrors your movements without realizing it, which are classic signs of rapport and interest, but also deeper indicators of a nervous system seeking warmth and safety, because human beings are wired for touch and closeness. And when that need has gone unmet for an extended period, the body begins to crave nearness in the smallest acceptable ways, ways that feel socially natural and low risk, like brushing shoulders when walking, lightly touching your arm to emphasize a point, fixing your collar, or allowing her knee to rest near yours without pulling away. And these gestures are rarely calculated or seductive in a deliberate sense, but instinctive, almost biological, the body's way of testing. Is it safe to come closer? Will I be welcomed or rejected? A dynamic often explained in the grounded psychological style associated with Dr. Ramani Durvasula, where behavior is framed as attachment needs rather than manipulation, because prolonged absence of intimacy can heighten sensitivity to physical presence itself, making simple closeness feel soothing and regulating, lowering stress, calming the heartbeat, creating a sense of belonging that words alone can't provide. So she may hold eye contact longer than usual, soften her facial expressions, smile more warmly, or tilt her head slightly while listening, all signals that say, "I feel safe here." And at the same time, she may unconsciously linger when saying goodbye, slow down her movements as if stretching out the moment, or find small reasons to stay in your space just a little longer. Not because she's trying to trap your attention, but because your presence feels grounding. And these micro movements become her quiet language of interest, a soft approach that invites connection without demanding it, allowing her to protect herself emotionally while still reaching, inch by inch, toward the closeness she has been missing. When a woman has been without intimacy for a long time, one of the most overlooked behaviors that begins to surface is a pattern of overgiving and people-pleasing. And it doesn't look like desperation or obvious self-sacrifice at first glance. It looks like kindness, attentiveness, generosity, the kind of behavior most people would simply label as sweet or thoughtful. Yet beneath that warmth, there is often a quiet psychological strategy unfolding. Because when someone hasn't felt chosen or emotionally held in a long while, they can start to believe, often unconsciously, that love must be earned rather than freely received. So instead of asking directly for attention or closeness, she tries to become indispensable, the person who remembers every detail, who checks in on you after a long day, who offers help before you even ask, who listens longer, supports harder, gives more time, more energy, more emotional labor than anyone else in the room, almost as if she is silently saying, "If I make myself valuable enough, you won't overlook me." And this pattern doesn't come from manipulation, but from self-protection, a way of lowering the risk of rejection by ensuring she is useful, appreciated, needed, because being needed can feel safer than being wanted. And you may notice she downplays her own needs while prioritizing yours, rearranging her schedule, agreeing quickly, avoiding conflict, laughing off things that might normally bother her, all subtle attempts to maintain harmony and secure connection, a dynamic often discussed in the calm, explanatory psychological tone associated with Dr. Ramani Durvasula, where people-pleasing is understood as an attachment response rather than a personality flaw, because prolonged emotional loneliness can make the nervous system equate approval with safety, so every smile or thank you becomes reassurance that she still matters, that she hasn't been pushed aside, and over time this can make her hyper-attuned to your moods, adjusting herself to keep things smooth, offering comfort when you're stressed, celebrating your wins more than her own. Sometimes even apologizing when she hasn't done anything wrong, not because she lacks strength, but because somewhere deep down she fears that asking for too much or taking up too much space could cost her the little connection she has finally begun to feel. So she gives and gives, hoping that generosity will anchor her place in your world and protect her from the ache of being invisible again. When a woman has gone a long time without intimacy, the emotional strain doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It often shows up as subtle mood fluctuations that seem confusing on the surface, but make perfect sense when you understand the loneliness underneath, because prolonged absence of closeness can dysregulate the nervous system, creating a push and pull between hope and self-protection. So one moment she may appear warm, playful, and deeply engaged, laughing easily, talking openly, leaning into the connection, as if she finally feels safe enough to relax. And then without warning, she may grow quiet, distant, or unusually guarded. Not because you did something wrong, but because vulnerability feels risky, and her mind is trying to protect her from potential disappointment. And this emotional swing happens because intimacy is tied directly to feelings of security and belonging. And when those needs have gone unmet for a long time, the brain becomes hypersensitive to both positive and negative cues, amplifying small changes into bigger emotional reactions. A pattern often explained in the clinical, behavior-focused style associated with Dr. Ramani Durvasula, where attachment deprivation creates heightened reactivity rather than instability. So a kind word can brighten her entire day, while a delayed response or slight shift in tone can trigger doubt or overthinking, and you may notice her replaying conversations in her head, wondering if she said too much or not enough, worrying whether you're losing interest even when there's no real evidence, which can lead to moments of over-enthusiasm followed by sudden restraint, like stepping forward emotionally and then quickly stepping back, almost testing the waters before fully committing, because she wants connection deeply, but fears investing her heart only to feel invisible again. So her moods ebb and flow with the level of reassurance she senses, creating a rhythm that reflects not drama, but a very human longing for steadiness, warmth, and emotional safety. When a woman hasn't experienced intimacy for a long time, one of the most revealing behaviors that quietly emerges is testing. Not in a manipulative or game-playing way, but as a protective instinct designed to measure emotional safety before she fully opens her heart. Because after periods of loneliness or emotional neglect, trust doesn't come easily, and her mind needs evidence that you're consistent, attentive, and genuinely present. So instead of asking directly whether you care, she observes how you respond to small situations. She might take a little longer to reply and see if you notice, share something slightly vulnerable, and watch whether you handle it gently, or pull back her energy for a moment to see if you lean in or let her drift away. And these subtle tests are often unconscious, rooted in the attachment system's need for reassurance, a dynamic frequently explained in the calm psychological language associated with Dr. Ramani Durvasula, where behavior is framed as self-protection rather than manipulation. Because she isn't trying to control you, she's trying to determine whether investing emotionally is safe, whether you're steady enough to stay, whether your interest is real or temporary. So she watches your consistency more than your charm, your reliability more than your words, quietly gathering proof that closeness with you won't end in another silent disappointment. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, you begin to realize something important, something most people completely miss, because when a woman hasn't been intimate for a long time, her behavior isn't random, dramatic, or attention-seeking in the shallow way people assume. It's communication, quiet, subtle, deeply human communication expressed through small gestures, softened eyes, extra kindness, lingering presence, careful questions, mood shifts, and gentle tests that all point to the same unspoken truth. She isn't chasing validation for ego. She's searching for reassurance that she still matters, that she is still seen, that she is safe to open her heart again. And every action, whether it's standing a little closer, giving a little more, seeking a little reassurance, or watching how you respond, is simply her nervous system trying to protect itself while still reaching for connection. Because intimacy is not just physical, it's emotional safety. It's trust. It's feeling chosen without having to beg for it. And when those needs have gone unmet for too long, the desire for closeness doesn't disappear. It becomes quieter, more careful, more indirect, which is why the man who wins her attention isn't the loudest or the most impressive, but the most steady, the most grounded, the one who notices without pressure, listens without judgment, and stays consistent without games. And when you understand this, you stop trying to perform or force attraction and instead become someone whose presence feels calm, reliable, and emotionally safe. Because at the end of the day, what she truly responds to isn't charm or tactics. It's the rare feeling that with you, she doesn't have to fight to be seen. She already is.